Great.
All right.
So, Aaron, take us away. Start us off on the time timer.
So today we're going to be talking about. Ready for me?
No. Yes. Yes.
Steven, you're failing already, and we're supposed to be talking about failing forward. You're already failing on this podcast.
Yes.
You see what I mean? You got to be crazy. It's too late to be sane. You got to go full tilt, Bozo. Because you're only given a little spark of madness.
We are attention.
If you lose that, you're nothing.
Attention.
Pay attention!
From me to you, don't ever lose that. Because it keeps you alive.
Different.
Today we're going to be talking about failing forward. Now, this is an interesting topic. It's kind of, let's think about it this way. We all experience certain kinds of failures and setbacks in our lives. And what we do with them defines who we ultimately become or what kind of successes we can attain. And what I want to talk about today, and what I want us to have kind of a bit of a debate about today, is how much of how we deal with failures and the mindsets we go into certain things with, whether it's a career or academics or other pursuits, how much that affects what we end up being able to accomplish and our ultimate rise in whatever domain it is, versus what our natural inborn capabilities, talents, characteristics play in, what those have to do with it. So failing forward is about looking at failure from a certain perspective, looking at it from this perspective of, if I fail, and we all fail sometimes, do I let this failure define me and become part of my character? Or do I look at failure as, what's the learning opportunity here? How can I grow from this? So what are your thoughts about this concept of failure and success?
I was very lucky to grow up or find my way into the art world, like the heart of the art world. And rather ironically, and perhaps perversely, the art world is all about failure. And it's one of the few places, or one of the few arenas that I've found celebrates failure more regularly than perhaps any other arena in the human species, because we believe about the process, right? Musicians, performers, comedians, it's all about the process. And the process is somehow more fascinating to us when considered in the art world, the entertainment world, than it is in, for instance, the athletics world or the scholastic world, the scientific world. In the arts world, we celebrate with interviews and behind the scenes and E2 Hollywood's behind the music, or VH1's behind the music. We celebrate the journey, that this band took, or that this guy or this woman took. Whereas in the world of athletics, the world of science, the world of, economy, the world of money especially, there seems to be this really strong and obsessive, results-oriented driven culture,
right,
where we don't care so much about how that person, that organization, that group, that scientist, that athlete, that businessman or woman got to that point. We care way more about the
what
point,
what they've accomplished,
what they've become. Did they break a world record?
Do they have $1 million?
Are they the richest man or woman in the world?
Billionaire, whatever.
We don't care about, for instance, the other day I looked up the Airbnb co-founders, and it was kind of out of spite. Like, I was having a conversation about Snapchat and Airbnb and Twitter and all this stuff and who started them, and these young kids in college who end up making billions of dollars. Lo and behold, two guys from RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, created Airbnb and are worth $3.4 billion each. Now, I cannot tell you right now how they created Airbnb. I know that they liked camping, and that was where the idea came from, was hitchhiking and camping.
It started as a very small site, and it was about him renting out this air mattress,
Right.
or them renting out this air mattress in their house to some people when they come to visit. And they had this idea of, well, maybe other people can do that.
But do you know when they became an LLC? Do
I
you
don't
know when?
I don't know the specifics, but
Do you know which professor gave them the idea for this, that, and the other? Do you know what taxes they pay? Whatever. We don't know the process of how Airbnb went from that site with an air mattress to both of them being worth $3.5 billion each.
well,
But
if you
we
want to
know
know
now.
about the process, there is an interesting NPR episode
Oh,
that
okay, great.
goes
Great.
into that.
But great.
Your
But
point
now
is,
we're talking about fringe movements to understand how things come to be. But by and large, that action that I took is indicative of a results-oriented culture. I was driven to find out how much they're worth now and where they went to college, and that's it. Like, I just wanted to know.
and like somehow that meant that you're gonna be able to make this leap in your cognitive
Yep.
appraisal of them, of like, oh, well, obviously, well, they went to this school, and then
Yeah.
5 years later, well, of course, that was a trajectory that was natural and inevitable, and that that's part of this mythology that we
Right.
have in our culture, in our society right now. That, okay, you go to a good school, you get a degree, then you land a job, and then it's kind of like one thing follows the next.
Right.
And we
The
don't
idea
give-
that there's any railroad track that you take and you go from station to station until you're successful.
and
that's
that
just
there's
how it
no
works.
setbacks, failures. It just seems like
Right.
it's seamless for some people. Now, and I think social media contributes to this, because especially kids in this day and age, they see their friends, they see their neighbors, they see other people, and they only post the good things. People
Yep.
don't like to post a lot of the negative stuff, or how their vacation went wrong. It's
Yeah,
like,
no,
oh,
exactly,
this is
yeah.
the best vacation
Here's that.
ever.
Could you imagine? Here's that
was
fight
so
mom and dad
amazing.
had on Tuesday. Like, like those
My-
kids are like at the beach in Mexico, but like instead all their Instagram photos are mom and dad fighting again. My brother put sand in my drink. I hate him. Like
Here's
stuff
sand
like
in my
that.
drink again. Look.
Yeah. Look, yeah, exactly. Here's 5 photos of sand in my drink in a collage I just made. Hashtag Sibs.
But yeah, that's not reality. That's
No, we
not
filter all the
reality.
positive.
And we think that everything, because we see it as this seemingly effortless kind of action to get to the results. We
Yeah.
see it from the outside, from this bird's eye view. We might see it on TV, like with sports. We might see a sports player, an Olympian, just flawlessly or almost effortlessly going through certain movements or motions or techniques that took years and years of dedicated hard work, practice, day in and day out,
Yeah.
grueling types of coaching and routines and specialties, special diets, all sorts of stuff that goes into that athlete's performance. But we don't see that. And because we don't experience it, because we don't know that process,
Right.
as a culture, we tend to just assume and think that process must have just been due to that person's natural God-given abilities, the stuff that they're born with, and those traits that make them special. And that's a problem, because when we try something, so like for instance, in a lot of cultures around the world, especially in our culture, you're kind of geared towards certain things. You're an artist, you're a singer, you're an actor. You're told these things by some kind of adult figure in your life. Some adult somewhere, whether it's a teacher, a parent, someone.
Or you're an engineer, you're a soccer player,
Right, you're good at math, you're good at
you're going to
science.
be political scientist, you're a historian, you're a doctor, or whatever.
But
You're
we're
a lawyer.
pushed in that direction,
Right.
usually, typically from some adult figure. And then we're also told competing messages from adult figures that say, when you tried singing, you didn't sound the best, so you probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about the element of how subtle commentary from competing authoritative figures or an authoritative figure can just close a door, like really slam a door shut, where you might have gone somewhere with that.
Yeah.
Like just the idea that it's really insidious if it's the idea between 1 and 2. Like, this is the best singer in your class, and it's like all 15-year-olds. It's like, she's the best singer. He's good, but she's the best. And the idea that subtle difference in number 1 and number 2 in a class of 30, number 2 may never pursue singing
Right. And
because they've been told, you're good, but she's the best.
exactly. That closes that door so
Yeah.
early, and it just shuts it down in that child's mind where they
Whereas
think, well,
statistically, the top 5 are probably could be all really successful. You know what I'm saying? Like just
but
on
it doesn't.
stats.
The point is, it doesn't matter where you start.
Right.
The
Agreed.
point is where you end up and
Yeah.
how you get there. Now, people think, well, because someone got to this level of success, this pinnacle of success, that must mean that they started ahead of everyone else. And that is not the case. When you look at so many stories and biographies of sports athletes, actors, musicians, whoever it is, and you look at their trajectory, a lot of times they had some pretty serious setbacks, or they even had people that told them not to do it. They just said, you suck. You're not any good. You're never going to make it. And sometimes it was even those messages, those failures, those moments of not getting the role, not getting the audition, being kicked off the team or not selected. Those things were the things that pushed them and motivated them. Like, for instance, Michael Jordan not getting selected for his high school basketball team. He got cut
Right.
from the team. Right? Einstein being told in college that he was no good at physics and he wasn't any good at math, so he should just give it up.
Yeah.
What if they would have listened to these things? What if those individuals would have just taken that on? Now, there's actually like some cultures in Africa, there's some tribes in Africa that everybody is taught to sing because it's a part of just their upbringing. And it's expected.
Right, of course. So there's a cultural angle too. So like very Western, it is very Western culture of us to categorize everyone so specifically. Like we have such, like Baskin Robbins 31 flavors.
Mhm.
We have like the United States 2000 flavors of what you are, like of self-definition, who you are, right?
And who defines who you are? Is it
I
society
love
or
that
you?
observation that there are cultures that refute entire vocations.
Yeah.
Like we are like, you're a singer, you're not. And then there's a culture in Africa that's like, we all sing.
Yeah. And guess what happens? Everybody can sing.
Because they've been taught from like age
and
0.
Like Mozart, for instance, was said to have had this great ability to have perfect pitch. He could listen to a song or listen to a note and know exactly what note it was and hear it on the piano. And the research has shown that perfect pitch is not something that's magical and like, oh, well, only a genius has that. Because Mozart was just obviously a genius. No, he was taught from an early age, and it wasn't the thing that was done in those times.
His father, the musician.
His father, the musician, did that with him.
And there are entire cultures. There are entire cultures that refute this fact now, because we have found that, a lot of people will say, maybe even crassly, like Korean, Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese, like musicians, right? Whether it's piano, violin, cello, etc. Like, they're Asian, so blah, blah, blah. But that's so belittling of this fascinating culture. It's a stereotype, but there's a fascinating cultural fact here that people are overstepping. Those cultures have languages in which pitch is a factor of how you communicate.
Exactly. And
so tones.
You have to differentiate.
And you have to differentiate.
Basis for those languages.
In places like in some parts of Thailand, where some dialects, the word for daisy, which is I learned this from a teacher in high school because her name was Daisy, but if you inflect it incorrectly, it roughly translates to a slang word for prostitute. Like flower. So her name was I'm Daisy. But if you said Daisy, right? Like there are different ways you say the word, whereas in English or Germanic languages, we just have Daisy, right?
Right.
They have 5, 6, 7 inflections of that word, of those characters. And it goes from Daisy to generic flower to prostitute. And if you don't introduce yourself correctly, so these kids have to understand tone.
They're exposed to it early on, and early
many more
enough,
of them have perfect pitch.
Exactly, and that's the point. Is what you practice ends up being what you're good at, what you can do.
Oh, I love the fact that that's also not born. No. That also separates us immediately from this idea of natural talent versus practiced talent, earned talent, right? They weren't born with perfect pitch. They just all were trained into perfect pitch out of necessity.
Yeah, and there's a TEDx talk that's kind of about this. I forget the guy that did it, but there's a talk, and we can link to it later. But there's a talk that the guy basically says, like, you can learn anything in 20 hours.
Mm.
And his point, where I don't know if you can learn everything in 20 hours, but the point is correct, which is technique and practice, dedicated, diligent practice, as Anders Ericsson pointed out, who came up with the 10,000 hour rule that Malcolm Gladwell popularized. In Anders Ericsson's research, he points out that actually it's the diligent practice of any one type of activity that is focused on intentionally targeting certain types of techniques, methods, mental models, something very specific about that helps someone improve incrementally. And
Right.
by doing that for a lot of hours, that's how you become an expert. But most people, they stop as soon as something gets hard.
Right.
Their mental state gets in the way. They start thinking about, I just must not be good enough, or
Your confidence
comparing
becomes a factor
themselves to
immediately.
someone else
Yeah.
and saying, well, why are they able to get it so much easier than I am? I must
Right.
be horrible. And they give up. Instead of looking at it like, well, what is it that I am not doing or understanding? And what would help improve this one technique? What kind of skill do I need
Yeah.
to work on?
And to reiterate, this goes for everything from essay writing to fishing to Olympic snowboarding to
Anything.
crunching
Anything you
numbers
wanna-
at the
anything you
business,
wanna get
anything,
good at.
any vocation, any
Anything
yeah.
you want to get better at
Yeah.
or become good at.
Oh yeah, personal skills, personal traits, anything.
Work towards it. Figure out what the fundamental skills, techniques, aspects of doing that, and build a certain mental model, build a certain muscle memory about it, and conceptualize that process well. Because if you get that right, then you're much more likely to be able to practice those skills diligently and then attain some kind of competency, if not greatness, if you practice it diligently enough and dedicate yourself diligently enough.
Absolutely. So we've established something that is widely picking up traction, which is cool. The Anders Ericsson, then funneled by Malcolm Gladwell, this 10,000
Yes.
hours rule, right? Which is spreading like wildfire in a good way. We've established what it takes to master something. Let's dial it back and talk personally about failing, about what we learn from failure, how failure is integral to
Yes.
attaining a master level of ability.
So failures happen early on, right? That first time you're told by that teacher, you're not great at this.
Right.
Or maybe you shouldn't do this. Or you're not picked for the team.
Mhm.
How do we internalize that? How we deal with that failure? And what we're arguing here today is really how to fail forward. How to not fail back, where it sets you back, or you give up, or
Right.
you stop, cease that activity, move on to the next thing. Because we know we ADHDers like to be really involved and really interested in something for a short amount of time, and then sometimes when it gets hard, or when we reach that one point where it takes some extra effort, or we're not finding as much growth opportunities we used to, when it takes, we might have like risen very fast in the trajectory, and then at some point it's a lot slower. You hit this
Right. No,
peak.
right. That's a great, to consolidate that a bit, it's that feeling of, wow, I'm learning a lot. Like, it's that there's a section of time where you learn that 20 hours you're talking about, like
Yes.
the technique. It's very easy to teach someone the rules
To get good, right?
to
good
get good, but to then get great. To
Right.
to evolve from that stage takes so much longer, and the steps are incremental. They're tiny.
The gulf between good and great is a lot larger than the gulf between a novice and good,
Or zero understanding
Right. and
competent.
competent.
Yeah.
So that one might be like this much, and then
Yeah.
competent to good might be this much, and then
Right.
good to great might be up here, out of the screen.
Off the screen.
Yeah. Where that's
Because,
where that
because the first one
10,000
takes a day. The second one takes some time, weeks, a month, 2 months. The third one takes your life. Takes 10 years. Takes 10 to 15 to 20 years.
daily practice.
Yeah.
So
So more failing forward.
yeah, So what are some failures or setbacks that you've had in your life where you've had that opportunity to either give up or continue on?
Right. I'd say two facets in high school, middle school into high school. I one liked to give chapel talks. I went to a religious school. We went to chapel every morning, extended church on Wednesdays, and on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Fridays, students could, but rarely took the opportunity, speak if they wanted to. We could actually give the homily, I think is what you call it, right? Um, Clearly I didn't carry the religion after high school, but
But the
students
speaking
were
thing, you were really
the
interested in.
speaking thing. It stuck. So students could, if they wanted to, speak, but just no one did. It's high school. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable,
Mhm.
and there's so many reasons why you wouldn't get up and be vulnerable like that in front of your peers. And I went to a small private high school, so everyone knows everyone. And I had a habit already of embarrassing myself publicly. So it didn't seem like that much of a stretch to get up and speak my truth in front of my classmates. And it was also a form of self-expression. And I wanted to, I was excited by it. Right. So first was the impulse and the zeal for
Mhm.
getting up in front of people and performing. But there were many of those. I gave like somewhere between 5 and 8, and over the period of sophomore to senior year
And
in
what
high school.
happened?
And some failed. Some were embarrassing. There was one called Word Vomit, which was an entire speech about gossiping, essentially. And wouldn't you know it, I'm 26 years old and I love gossip. But in high school, I gave this huge Joan of Arcian, like, we should stop gossiping. I call it word vomit. It's just nastiness. What I was really picking at was behind people's back, mean high school bullshit, and how it's such a negative, has such a negative affect on the community. But the way it came out was like goody two shoes,
Mm.
like rule follower. It made me sound like the biggest freaking nerd in my class, without question. And it occurred to me halfway through the talk. I was like, wow, I sound really lame right now. And it didn't help that after the talk, all of the teachers came up and they were like, that was so sweet. Like, what you said was so good. Stephen, like, yes, like, yeah, you guys should stop bullying each other. And all the students are like, teacher's pet, what a loser. And but that reaction, I remember one teacher in particular, really intimidating guy, came up to me and said, and he was very curt. He said, Tonti, your talk today in chapel. I was like, yeah. He said, you had some good ideas in there. You had some good ideas in there. I think somebody should say, like, he essentially is like, I'm happy someone said it, right? And I'll never forget that little passing in the cafeteria where all the students were like, that was awkward. But this one guy was like, someone had to say it. And whether or not your feelings hurt or it was embarrassing, I'm proud of you for saying it. And that one interaction drove me to give more talks in spite of embarrassment and social outcast, right? And the same was true for theater. I did theater all 4 years of high school and received in Dallas, Texas, in a very southern libertarian conservative state. And it's not really, if you're not at an arts magnet, it's not perceived very highly or even at all. Like your fellow private high school students are all studying engineering and math and science and history to try and get into that super competitive college. They don't really give you the time of day as an actor or a painter or a musician.
Were you ever
So
told not to do acting?
often by teachers and students, especially at this is not to poo-poo STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, and math,
Engineering, math, yeah.
or STEM schools. But because like, a side effect of our school being a STEM school, a hard and fast STEM school, it was looked down upon. Acting and playing an instrument in band. If you were a really good musician, like a guitar player or a violinist or whatever, that was separate almost from taking classes at school. That was, oh, he's really good at the piano or she's really good at the violin.
Right.
But and in school, you were picked on. I say this knowing full well
Was
the sound, the uncomfortable, but I was referred to as a theater fag, which is a very pejorative thing, and not only by fellow classmates. Some unnamed adults referred to me and others in the drama department as this, usually jokingly. It was very like, haha, yeah, theater fag. But that's at this age, if I could go back in time as a 26-year-old me and like grab that kid by the shoulder who said that and be like, that's no, like you're
That's
in
offensive.
timeout. That is offensive. But at the time, you just kind of like sheepishly take it and
Well-
move on. But I took it as like, I'm going to prove my, like, you know what? Screw that kid. Like he or she doesn't see what I see, and that's okay. I love this thing. I'm going to keep doing it.
Were there any other failures of maybe something you gave up because someone told you?
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. I beat myself up to this day. Not giving up. I didn't give up, but I'm about as close as you can get to quitting something without having officially quit it. And that's playing the drums. So when I was in middle school and high school, I played, my family, everyone thought I was going to be a musician. And that's where I was already looking at music schools for college, my freshman, sophomore year. But at the same time, I found theater, or theater found me, however romantic you want to get about it. And very quickly, I stopped playing as much music. I was in a garage band at the time, and we played until I was a senior in high school, like battle the bands and stuff. But I was practicing when I was in middle school and freshman, sophomore year of high school. I practiced 4 hours a day, every day, playing the drums. And I was a fairly competent, even I'd say not great, but above good, like just above good, solid jazz funk drummer. Not great. And by the time I got to college, I was playing super less because I was going to drama school and I wasn't going to music school anymore. But I would play on occasion at a jazz club here and there over the 4 years, maybe 5 times over 4 years. And then by the time I got to New York, my drum kit was down to just a little studio, like plinky plunky kit. It was like a percussion kit. I still have it here in LA, but I don't play. I haven't played my drum kit in years. And that hurts every time I go to a concert. I go to a lot of concerts. I love live music, and every single one, there is a moment where I wish very passionately that I was up there on the stage playing the drums.
Okay. So I'll
I think we can add 10 or so.
Yeah. Well, I'll suggest let's do 10 minutes. I'll go
Great.
through some of my stories.
Great. And to wrap that up, to button that, essentially the saving grace was that even though I've had to say bye-bye for some time to that profession, that's not a game ender. That's my life didn't end. I just
Did
changed
someone tell
paths.
you not to do it? That's what I was getting at. Is like, was it like you shouldn't do that? Yeah, that was something you were good at.
My father, as well as others, I'll point to my dad, definitely very dry, or you'll help me figure this out, but like more like not rational, but almost mathematic in his.
Here, correct me if I'm wrong. Let me take a stab at this.
Yeah.
Was it like, oh, Steven, you can be anything you want to be, and that's great. It's awesome to have a hobby, and oh, you're so good at drumming. But then once it got serious, once it became, you're looking at schools, and now it's like, you're entering into this next phase of thinking about something serious. Was it at that point where it was kind of just like, well, all right, that was a fun thing to do, but
Exactly that.
let's look more realistically
Exactly
and
that.
pick a career that might make some money here. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly that.
And I have
Yeah.
a similar story.
Go for it.
When I was entering into college,
Wait, you, an ADHDer, and my partner, an attention different, have a story similar to mine
yeah,
about failing forward?
I have actually a bunch. But
Go on.
when I was entering into college, I was told growing up, right, art was my thing. So I was going to be an artist. And I think this is something about our generation, the millennial kind of generation too, that oftentimes our parents said, hey, you can be anything, honey. You can do
Mhm.
whatever you want, and you're so great, and you'll be this, and you'll be that. You'll be an astronaut. You'll be a doctor.
The
You'll be an
special
actor.
generation.
Yeah, you're so special. But
The
then
generation.
when it comes down to it, it was like, oh well, let's pick something else. So I basically went into college thinking, okay, I'm going to be an artist, because I've been
Mm.
thinking about that for years and years, since I was like 5 years old. And then as soon as I went to college, I could tell I got the not so subtle message from my father that was, he's not a bad guy or anything, but he basically kind of was like, are you sure that's what you want to do? Maybe you should think about something else. Artists don't make that much money. It was like that kind of discussion.
Mm.
And I think that kind of took the wind out of my sails, to tell you the truth, because I I internalized that message. I heard that, and I think I didn't quite take art school as seriously, or think of it even as a profession, or really
Bummer.
explore whether or not there was a possibility there, because I didn't think, how do you make money from this? Or how do professional artists, because there's art people that are making
A living.
boatloads of money
Many
from
of
their
them.
art. Many,
Yeah.
many people. I mean, of course, it's harder than getting a business degree or something, or an economics degree, but there is a way. There's a path to make
Yeah.
money. There's a career there,
Yeah.
and I didn't explore it because I don't think I was encouraged. And so it's not the
Do you think
it's
that's
not the
one human
fault.
being's fault, or do you think that's a
I
cultural
don't think
fault?
it was the fault of my parents. I think it was a more of a cultural, generational thing,
Right.
that our parents were told, hey, to be good parents, you kind of boost your kids' self-esteem up, and you make them, believe they can be anything that they want to be, and you just tell them they're great because they tried really hard. But when it came to like actually making that a career, making it viable, that's where I think that generation of parents and adults kind of fell through.
You know what?
And as
It's
a society, we're
yeah.
failing in that still.
Yeah.
That we're still failing because we have this mistaken belief in this innate ability that if you don't make it at some point to this pinnacle of success, or you don't outshine everyone else just because of your natural abilities, then you might want to give up that thing that was a interesting hobby, or side thing, or talent that you were doing, and
Right.
pick
We're
something more
anchored to
serious.
the phrase he/she is a natural. We're like really hooked to that. Oh yeah, he's a natural. Oh, she's a natural. From freaking birth, from the moment you're crawling to walking. Shoot, I do it with my buddy David and his newborn kid. Oh wow, he's like already saying hello. That must mean like already we're labeling
Yeah.
and we're
Oh, he's
qualifying.
such a good artist. Oh, she's such a
At
great
one, not
singer.
even 1 years old, at like 5 months, it's like, oh wow, David, look at how he smiles when you turn on Bach or Mozart. He must be a classical fan. Like he's 5 months old. He
And
isn't, and we're
what
already
would be
labeling.
what would be the difference if we would say, wow, that kid tried so hard.
Right. Look at the effort that person put
Look at
in.
the effort,
Look at the
or
passion that
look
person
at the
had
potential
for
there.
anything. Like look at the passion in that kid. Like passion separate from vocation. Passion separate from activity. Look at
Yeah.
how passionate this person is. We are so impressed by your passion and your hard work.
And I'll give an example of failure that I went through too. So when I was in college,
Yeah.
I at first went in and I didn't really think about all of the types of study skills I would need, what types of supports I would need. I kind of decided when I went into college, I'm just going to go at this on my own. I'm going to stop taking medication. I'm going to not really put together the disability resources package and give those forms to my teacher. I kind of intentionally decided not to do that because I wanted to see if I could make it on my own. I had this independent spirit of, hey, I'm going to just go headfirst into this and see what happens. And then what ended up happening is I got caught up in a lot of stuff. I got caught up in a lot of social distractions. I got caught up into some partying. I got caught up into not studying, procrastinating, not managing my time well at all, not eating well, not sleeping well, all sorts of things that a lot of ADHDers experience. And I remember I ended up getting like a 1.5 GPA that my second semester in my sophomore year.
Okay.
And I was on the brink of academic probation. I was at that point where I had to, pull it together. And
Shape up or ship out.
yeah, and I ended up the next semester, I was trying to make some changes, but I still didn't know how. And I was reluctant to ask for help. I was reluctant to figure this out and know where to go to figure this
We got to
out.
circle back to reluctant to ask for help, but continue going.
And I ended up like having to withdraw from that semester. So my first semester of sophomore year, I just withdrew and lost a lot of credits, lost time. And that was a big failure. And I even remember I missed my biology final because I was so
Okay.
unorganized. It was a midterm or something. I think it was a midterm. I missed the midterm. I
Woof.
instead of like
Like by
writing it
accident.
down, having a schedule,
Yeah.
I completely just missed it. I forgot when it
Do you
was.
remember what you were doing
I don't
when you
remember
missed it?
what no, I don't remember exactly, but I remember I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
I
Right.
remember I
Right.
felt like such a
Right.
failure in that moment. I was
What did you learn from that?
well, I learned that in the moment, of course, I said to myself, God, what's wrong with me? Like, why do I always do this? I'm so like forgetful. And of course, my natural ADHD tendency at the time was to tell myself, oh, just like move on, forget about it, just keep going forward, blame it on something else, blame it on the
Yeah.
teacher. Why didn't the teacher
Yeah.
say something more as the midterm was approaching? Or who knows? I was going to try and just put it off onto something else.
Right.
But I think looking back, what I learned from that experience later on, I learned that I had a choice to how I internalized that failure,
Great.
what I did from there. And what I ended up doing, and it took a number of months and even years to really apply this and to mature in my thought process. I had to figure things out the hard way. And what I figured out was that I could decide what's not working in what I'm doing, in my study habits, in my organization, my time management, what's not working, and how do I kind of help myself figure those things out? Where do I go? Do I talk to a teacher and ask for help and go in their office hours and create a plan with them? Do I learn from my friends and form study groups? I had to learn that stuff the hard way.
Right.
And when I started doing that and I started reaching out and I started coming up with more strategies and figuring stuff out and using like, Google Calendar and a planner and those kind of things to help myself, that's when stuff started to turn around. But I think that the big thing that also shifted that was my own internal process and mindset of how I was internalizing those setbacks. Instead of blaming someone else, pointing the finger, or looking for other reasons or excuses why that thing happened, I started taking responsibility, and I started doing it in not a negative way or a way that was like beating myself up about it, but I started looking at it in a proactive, constructive way. What can I do about this now? Now that this happened, yes, it happened, it sucked, but now what can I do?
Right. No,
And-
yeah, absolutely.
I even have like a recent story this week that happened.
Oh, yeah.
So I was on my way to a client's house and I'm redecorating the office, and I am carrying my mug of smoothie, my coffee, my bag for work, and I'm having my wife help me because she's also carrying my something else for me. And I'm loading this. I have over my shoulder, I also have this carpet like for the office, and I'm trying to load this into the car. So I put my smoothie down, I put the coffee down, and then I, load in the carpet.
Yeah.
And guess what?
What?
All of a sudden, I look to the front seat. The carpet had hit the smoothie as I was loading it because I didn't see, and I had smoothie all over my front seat. And I had about not a huge window to spare here. I had about 15 minutes. Had about like 5 to 10 minutes before, I really need to be on the road, or else I was going to be super late. And I had to sit there with like towels, and paper towels trying to clean up this smoothie.
Real talk. Did you
sucked.
scream at first? Did you curse? Or were you like internal sigh, like, darn, and like went inside and started cleaning? Like how much time was there
I
of that
wish I
5 to
was
10?
I wish I was like super zen and mindful in the moment and was like, well, I accept that this is what happened. But
This is a learning experience.
no, but I was like, fuck, and I just, yeah, it upset me.
Right.
But
Yeah.
what I did in that moment, okay, was I told myself, all right, I went through this thought process, and this is something I developed over time, which is, all right, this happened.
Yeah.
This is where we're at.
Yeah.
This is what's going on. I can't change the fact I just spilled a smoothie.
Yep.
So I can get upset about it. I can, curse. I can stomp my feet, whatever I'm going to do. But I can't change the fact that this already occurred. So what is my option here?
Yeah.
My option is to make the best of the situation. So what I decided to do, well, it still upset me. I still felt it. I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to clean this up the best I can. I'm going to get moving to my appointment. I still just set the paper towel down on top of it. And I'm like, I'll get the rest of this later. Continued on to my appointment. I ended up hitting some traffic, which again pissed me off a little bit.
Oh, dude,
But
to
then
interject for a moment, that's my favorite when you've gotten over the anger. Like you were like, okay, I'm zen. And then like 10 minutes later, there's another thing. And clearly you haven't done all the legwork earlier because like a little thing makes you like slap the steering wheel and you're like, I am still angry.
Yep. Oh, here you go. Here's your next challenge.
I've been there so often. And usually it's the second time that I have a little outburst within 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, you need to really calm down.
What else? What else is life going to throw at you?
Exactly.
But what ended up happening, which is interesting, is so I went in and I met with my client. And that day, my client told me how he was really beating himself up. And that was actually the topic of our conversation was how does he deal with the self-perception of negativity and how does he deal with some difficult things because he's always making some mistakes in his personal life. And he had like forgotten to pick up his daughter from the bus from her summer program, and she was waiting out there and she was crying and she had tears in her eyes. She's like, Daddy, I thought you forgot me or you left me. And he felt super bad about it. And in that moment I had this revelation of saying, I'm going to share the story of what I just went through this morning and tell him, because obviously I could have covered it up, or I could have, told him, well, it was just traffic or something. And sometimes that is what we have to do in life. We do have to just kind of say, well, it was traffic, and then deal with things on our own to be professional. But what I did was I decided to be vulnerable and to share that story as a learning opportunity and to say, we all are dealing with stuff like this. We all are imperfect. Things happen to us all the time. Yeah. And one thing I told him is that ADHD mistakes are inevitable, but how we react to them is not.
Yes.
So we're always going to have that ADHD stuff that happens. But our own reactions, that's the thing we can control.
Yes. If I may, and sorry I keep interjecting, I've been dying to correct something in a way. I think earlier in this episode I got bogged down in trying to find a specific example of a failure, but you've just nailed the more important point, which is that it's not about the specific one that I learned from, actually. I don't think audiences will get the most information from an anecdote about a time I failed. I think what's more important here is that you will fail. We will all fail. You will fall. I can think of virtually every outdoor activity I've ever tried to learn, whether it be martial arts, skateboarding, snowboarding, you name it. I've had good coaches who have said, you're going to fall. You're going to get hurt. It is inevitable. Do you want to be good at this? The response was, yes, of course I do. And then their reaction was, you are going to get hurt. This is skateboarding. You're going to hurt your butt sometimes. You're going to fall, right? This is martial arts. You're going to get into a sparring match with somebody and get a bruise. Like, you're going to get hurt. If that's a stopping point for you, then you need to leave. Then, or you need to go home, self-reflect, and come back unafraid and confident that that's part of the journey. It's not about will you or won't you fail. And now we've got a tech industry where venture capitalists, massive angel investors, are stressing this. They're investing in companies that have already failed, sometimes marvelously, lost all their money. But why are they investing in those companies? Because they learned huge valuable lessons from failing, from, pardon my language, but fucking up, right? You have to fall to then pick yourself up and learn from that fall, right? Some of our obvious examples are athletic because it's so tangible, it's so obvious. That person didn't hit the ball the right way, or didn't throw a punch the right way, or didn't, et cetera, right? And then they tweak their golf grip, and then suddenly the swing is perfect. That is what we're getting at, but on a more personal and a deeply emotional way. When you fail to pick up your daughter, when you didn't study for the midterm, or you missed the midterm, right, because you didn't schedule it well enough, or you forgot your scheduling, or what have you, we will have an emotional response, right? My Nana was a child adult psychologist, and she used to take the word reaction out of our conversations when I was young, which I loved. She would say, what I just said, you have a response, right? So there's an emotional response, which in sweeping terms, you can't control the involuntary emotional response, for instance, to someone jumping around a corner and saying, boo, right? You may, right?
You have a startle response.
You have a startle response. But every action after that, for most of us on the planet, we have varying degrees of control, and it's usually a lot of control, or a lot more than you think, over how you react. So we have misappropriated the term reaction to be like going when someone says boo, but that's not the case. The reaction is how you act in response to your emotional feeling. If someone says something and I'm angry. How can I react? I have so many options. I can let it roll off me. I can forgive them. I can forgive myself. I can punch them. I can scream at them. I can run around the front yard naked yelling, I hate humans, right? Or I hate everyone. Those are all choices that I have. Exactly. But we grow and learn through failing, through feeling upset, through feeling frustrated, through experiencing these challenges. We learn how to best react, how to most productively and most efficiently react.
Yes, and it's how we fail.
It's how we fail. Yes.
We fail. It's how we fail.
Exactly.
And then how we react to that failure, or to that strong emotional state that happens in the moment when we make a mistake, when we mess up, when we fuck up, when we said something, did something that upsets someone else. That's that opportunity for growth. And yes, that's cheesy, the opportunity for growth, or your learning opportunity. That's a bit of a cheesy phrase, but it's so true. Like, if we really think about it, that momentary separation between that voluntary reaction and the involuntary emotional state that you're in or feeling, that state, yes, you can feel anger, right? And even the best monks out there, the ones that have had 20 years of practice or something, or 30 years of practice, a whole lifetime of practice, it's not that they don't feel anger or they're upset by something. You just don't visibly see it, because they're sitting with that reaction, they're noticing that reaction,
letting it walk
and
by.
They're letting it happen, because they know that every emotional state, just like every situation, is impermanent. It's temporary. That you can let it pass, and what you do with it is totally up to you. You can't control whether or not it happened anymore, because it's the past. What happened in the past has already happened. Can't change it, can't control it, can't go back and do it again. But what you can choose to is, how do you deal with it now? Do you make someone's life worse? Do you make your own situation worse by escalating it? Do you choose to act in a violent, angry, hostile, manipulative, whatever other way that's going to be detrimental to your own health and well-being, or other people's health and well-being? Or do you choose to intentionally act with kindness, concern, compassion, self-compassion, compassion for others, and decide that what's best for me is to keep a level head, to look at my options, and then once I'm outside of this strong emotional state, maybe I'm filled with rage or anger, is it the best time for me to decide what to do, how to shoot off that email to my boss? Probably not. I got that bad grade on the test. Is that the time when I should confront my teacher? And I'll give you one last example here of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
when I did this in school. I had one of my favorite teachers, Miss Winter. She was my English teacher growing up. I had her for a few years in
Oh,
high
we've
school.
talked about Miss Winter only because
Yeah,
both of us loved our high school English teachers.
yeah, and I remember I tried really hard on this paper,
Yeah.
and I was really proud of it. And then I turned it into her. I think it was like a book report or something. And then I turned it into her. I get it back, and it was a B plus. Which you're like, hey, that's pretty good.
It's
Yeah,
good.
awesome.
Yeah.
But for me, I was like, this is my favorite class. I put every single ounce of who I am into this paper. I tried
Right.
really hard, harder than I've tried anything so far. And I really wanted that A. I was like, and I thought in my mind, this is an A paper. This is an A plus. This deserves, because of the sheer amount of effort. So actually, I was pissed. I wasn't happy. I wasn't like just upset. I felt this like extreme anger. Like I was like, what did I do wrong? What else could I have done?
Right.
Why don't I have this
I
A
thought I
plus?
put everything into this.
Yeah, what
all
the
of
hell? And I was so upset.
it. Yeah.
And I remember I went home. I showed my dad the paper. We went into the hot tub because we used to have these conversations in the hot tub. And I told my dad, you know what? I'm going to go in there tomorrow. I'm going to confront this teacher. I'm going to like throw this paper down the desk. I'm going to be like, okay, look, you marked this off. You marked this off. What did you, and I was going through all these reasons why I deserved an A. And he's sitting there listening to me and he's like, okay, yeah, all right, Aaron. And then he said to me something and he goes, but I thought she was your favorite teacher and you guys have a really good relationship, right? He's like, is it worth it over a B plus for you to destroy that relationship and confront her in this manner? He's like, I really seriously want you to think about that and decide what to do. And he's like, I want you to take some time and to not just react in this way. And at first I was like, oh, Dad, you don't know what you're talking about. I know, like I was a teenager, right? So I'm like, you know what you're talking about. I could go in, like it's going to be fine. Like, but then I thought about it, right? I went, I thought about it later that night.
It only takes one calm authoritative voice to get the gears turning, whether or not
I
we
ended
acknowledge
up
it
the
first.
next day going into her, and it worked out fine because I went in and instead of confronting her about it, I just went up and I told her in a calm way that I had really tried and I asked, what could I do differently next time on this next paper to really get an A?
Right, because your genuine upsetness was being channeled as anger. You were projecting that shock and upsetness as anger. But once you strip away the anger, which is such a first line of defense emotional state, like we could do a whole episode and we will on my note for anger, just being angry, right? It's such a first line. It's the surface emotion, right? When in reality, what you were feeling was way more complex. It was self-doubt. It was self-defeat. It was disappointment in yourself, but also you had this rapport with this person, so probably embarrassment because you put a lot of work into that, and because you like this person, you like this class, and then you didn't quite get there, so embarrassment's in there. So really, those are all the colors on the color wheel of where you were at when you walked in, finally cooled off, to say, hey, I was gonna come in here and yell a lot, but really I'm just sad. I'm just upset. Like, please explain what I can do better next time. And I'm going to assume she did.
And I ended up, getting an A in the class and doing better in it later.
There you go.
Because I handled it in that way. And I think in the past I would have done the opposite, and I had done the opposite before, where I had in the moment, cursed out the teacher or went up and slammed the door and said, screw this class, and ripped up my paper and threw it in the trash. Like, I can't tell you how many times I did stupid things like that, or kicked the trash over, or kicked the door or something.
Right.
I was a very reactive kid growing up. And it only took the 10th or 11th or 20th time of doing something like that, and then realizing that I made a permanent enemy out of that teacher, or now the teacher's going to show me that they're really in charge and even grade the next one even harder, just to punish me for that reaction rather than it being anything constructive.
Of course.
But in the moment, right, the ADHD mind isn't thinking about that.
No.
So I think in terms of how we deal with setbacks, how we deal with disappointments, how we deal with failures, the main point that we're trying to get across here is these things are inevitable. They're going to happen.
Yeah.
Everyone fails. And the greatest people out there are the ones that fail the most, but are the most consistent about how they deal with failure.
It's almost like a math problem. If you've been in the game that long, that you are an icon, no matter what it is, you have failed the most out of your arena, in your arena, but gotten back on the horse every time, every single time. 1-to-1 failure and get back up ratio, right? It has to be.
Learn from it.
Yeah.
Adopt some strategy to change, get back in the zone. You can't play a game from the bench. If you bench yourself, to bring a sports analogy, if you sit yourself out of the game and you bench yourself, there's no way you're going to ever score a goal if you're sitting on the bench.
I had a skateboarding coach who used to say, if you psych yourself out.
Yeah, but if you get up, you
and
get back in the game.
Drop in.
And no matter if you missed that last shot or you messed up and you missed the game-winning shot, there's going to be another opportunity. And the next time around, you're going to get it.
Yeah.
Or you're more likely if you're back at it and you go and you're playing, and if you're sitting out. There's no way you can make that game-winner shot the next time if you're sitting out. Now, people think of like we said Michael Jordan before, but it's like, I know, like, how many 3-point shots or game-winning shots did he miss?
Oh, God. Way more than they made. I mean, like, look at the baseball ERA, right? Like, how many times you hit versus not hitting. It's astronomical.
But we remember the one time.
Yeah,
when
of course.
he did. You remember that one time in the finals, or it's like the final second, the countdown is here. Oh, the shot goes up and Jordan saves the game.
Yeah.
That's the thing we remember, and that's the thing that we gravitate towards as a society. But that's not the reality. The reality is, how many times did he shoot and miss and shoot and miss?
I think there was an article on this. I don't know if it was for Michael, but like a short little observation of exactly this, of a basketball player who made the game-winning shot versus the same number of game-winning shots he didn't make. Yeah. I think you're right on the money. And it was like totally different. It was wild. It was like, oh, he didn't make 500 and he made 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy difference. And it was like, yeah, but of course you remember the championship NCAA or the championship NBA game where they made the shot. But how about all those times they didn't? Just didn't, because that's life. And there's 100 games a year or whatever it is, you know? I kind of want to do something weird or suggest it. Maybe we should have our audience members write down, or just encourage people to write down their top 3 or just 3 times that they failed and got back on the horse. And maybe you and I can do that as well and put it online as like a blog, like a mini blog post.
Yeah.
Just like 3 times of when we failed and then we got back on the horse and it worked out. You know, like where we and try and not focus too much on sometimes someone said something to you, but more like when you forgot to go to the midterm and how you turn that around.
Yeah. How about the top failures that have taught you something?
Great. Exactly that.
The top failures, let's say the top 3 failures in your life, could be recently, could be past, but stuff that you feel are the top 3 examples of where you learned something and you grew from it. You might not have felt that way.
Well, that's why I was suggesting removing top, just 3, because it could be recent or like big ones. And correct me if you think that's incorrect, but I'd say like just list 3 times recently or that you learned something from a failure.
Yeah, and how you responded to it, how it made a difference.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I think that'd be cool.
And we can post it online, or
yeah,
maybe do a follow-up episode or something where we share some of those examples. But
I think that'd be fun. And awesome. And it's we and I'm happy that we are carrying the torch, because we need to be okay with failure.
So continue to fail, everyone.
Yeah.
It's okay, because we're all doing it. We all fail.
Yeah, go fail and
Fail
learn
like
something.
us. Fail like us.
Yeah.
Right?
Fail
But
like a champion.
Fail like a champion.
Yeah,
Hell
we need you to fall like a professional, okay?
Fall and know how to fall.
Yeah,
Fall on your ass really well.
yeah,
And then get your ass back up.
yeah.
Get on the field.
Okay,
And then start succeeding again.
Okay.
Like you know you're going to.
yeah, I know I'm going to.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
I'm ready, man.
do
I'm
it.
gonna fail. I'm gonna
Get back
fall
out
right
in
now.
that game,
I'm
Steven.
gonna fall over right now.
All right, do it.
I'm gonna
Do it.
fall over
Do
right
it.
now.
Yeah. Oh.
I'm just kidding. Although I did pull my headphones out of the thing.
How much equipment are we going to break right now?
Cannot hear anything you just said. The headphones came out during the standing part, but I think we'll just end right before I jump.
You see what I mean? You got to be crazy. Too late to be sane. You got to go full tilt, Bozo. Because you're only given a little spark of madness. If you lose that, you're nothing.
Pay attention.